Well, good morning, everybody. I hope that this Monday finds you with a good beginning to your week. Hopefully you're not listening to this when it comes out at 5 o'clock in the morning Mountain Time, because that's just far too early to actually be awake. Today's episode, and all the episodes for the rest of this year, are brought to you by Black Rifle Coffee. I've known Evan, the alleged founder of Black Rifle Coffee, for quite some time. He's become a very close friend, and I could not be more proud to be more deeply involved with the organization. I know the founders. They're great people. I know what the organization stands for. I understand what they're doing behind the scenes, and I actually really love their coffee. And if you do not want your coffee to taste like it was percolated in a hobo's asshole, I recommend you go to blackriflecoffee.com and check out what they have to offer. They got a variety of blends or standalone. You could get their monthly ECS. They also now have a merch subscription, or it's getting ready to come out. So you can basically have whatever you want delivered to your door as often as you want to. And in doing so, like I said, you'd be supporting an amazing brand and one that I could not be more proud to be a part of. And that's it. Let's get to my guest today. Repeat guest. His name is Angel Cortes. And on this episode, we talked less about his background than we did the first time he was here. So I would recommend, if you want to dive deeper into where Angel comes from, go to episode number 141. So it was about a year ago, actually about a year and a half, given the math. He grew up in Orange County, and I'm going to describe his upbringing as pretty challenging and difficult. Had spent some time as part of a gang, maybe chose to sell some guns and some drugs, and then decided it was time for a shift, went into the military, became a ranger, completed deployments to both Afghanistan and Iraq, and he's now full-time in school still. Looking forward to becoming a registered dietitian. He has the company, the OG Pumpkin. He's got a pretty unique daily driver in a white limousine. And I think my favorite thing about him is his headspace and his approach to life. Episode number 223 with Angel Cortes. Enjoy.
Okay, got the red smoke. Gun run, north or south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke. Okay, copy, west of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now. Come on with it, baby, give it to me, I need it. You're cleared hot. Copy, cleared hot.
Why do you have a notebook? You're making me nervous.
I came with notes.
You came with notes?
Yes.
Where are we beginning then, since you apparently have a strategy for this? Where should we begin?
Well, first things first, I want to say thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure, man.
You last time I was here, it helped me a lot, and I didn't know what was going to come out of it, and it was life changing. You changed my life.
I think we might be starting off with you exaggerating just a little bit.
No, you. Because I was looking forward to just having this conversation here at a coffee shop or whatever, with you, Mike Glover, Kevin, and Mike Ridland. Is almost immediately I went on your guys' podcast like within a couple months, right?
Yeah, it was quick.
And it really changed my life, because then it changed. If it changed my life, it affected my kids' lives for the better, and then affected my wife's life so the relationship between her and I.
Yep. And
one of the things that we talked about last time was, me growing up, emotionally and physically abused.
Yeah, we talked a lot about your parents.
Yeah, and you brought up something that, I said that the relationship is a lot better now, but we haven't forgiven. And then you said I said something like, oh, I'm just waiting for it to be brought up or something, or I don't know when to bring it up. And then you're like, maybe you should bring it up. And that stuck in my head. And when I came back, when I went back to California, it was in my head like, you should probably do it. And
let's not forget that you drove back to California.
Yeah, I drove.
Did you drive back to Montana this time?
I didn't. I flew in. The drive last time
is beautiful, but it lasts for exactly 17 days.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. So, yeah, the last time I was here, I was tired from the drive, because I underestimated how long it was going to take. I was tired. I was nervous. I felt like I was like in the news when you have 30 seconds to say something.
Yeah.
I felt rushed. This time I'm more relaxed.
That's the beauty of this format, is there's no reason to be rushed at all.
Yeah. And so when I went back after your podcast, and it aired, somebody who is your friend, Paul Gomez, who'd been at Hurley for a while and stuff like that, reached out, and I got a DM. He said, "Hey man, I heard you on Andy Stump's podcast. You know, I want to talk to you. You know, buy you lunch." And then we talked for like 3 hours, and he said that my story, you know, hit home with him because we had similar things growing up, and one of the things that he brought up was, and it kind of surprised me within the 3-hour conversation. He's like, I think you should go forgive. You should talk to your parents, not for them, but for you. And you were already implanted in my head, and I was like, I'm going to do it. And then him reaching out and saying, like, you know, long story short, he's going to help me. He's going to, you know, guide me as much. And then after a while, let me fly. And if I can fly, I can fly. And if I can't, then I'm sorry. I you know, he helped. And so immediately I drove from Irvine Spectrum to my house, which is like a 30-minute drive. And I called my dad, and I was like, what are you doing today? And he's like, oh, so-and-so. And I was like, let's have dinner. And like, my heart's pounding. Like, I'm on the freeway, my heart's pounding when I'm talking to him. And then I called my mom. I was like, what are you doing today? She's like, nothing. And I was like, perfect. Come, we're gonna have dinner. And the way it played out was that my mom's like, oh, well, I can't be there till so-and-so time. And then so it was my dad first. And I told Anelia, like, real cool, my wife, Anelia, I told her, like, as fast as I could, because my dad was going to come in like 30 minutes. I was like, oh, Paul Gomez told me this, and that, and this. And so I called my dad to forgive him. And obviously this surprised her. Like, you went to meet up this guy, and then now you're calling your dad to forgive him. And she knows, you know, I've known my wife since I was 7 years old. So she knows, you know, she's seen a lot of this stuff that I was going through. And my heart was pounding. And I told my dad, I was like, Dad, I met a gentleman named Paul Gomez. He says he's going to help me, guide me as much as he can. And one of the things that he brought up, you know, was that I to have my head straight because I'm in a new chapter, and I clearly am in a new chapter in my life, and I think it's time that we talk about the past. I think it's, I know you were young when you had me, and when you had all of us. I don't understand, you know, everything that was going on in your life, and I forgive you for everything, for the abuse, and I can tell it surprised him. And then he spoke in a way that I had never heard my dad speak. Like, I remember I was 12 years old, and he was drunk, and it was Christmas, and he told me he loved me. And before that, I don't remember a time where he told me, I love you. Mm-hmm. And then just that 1 minute when he had his arm around me and he told me that, it was so awkward because that's how much we didn't have a certain, you know, that love in the relationship. And then he just opened up and he said, you know, I can hear him in his voice that he's tearing up, which I've never seen my dad do. And he's like, you know, I'm all this. He's like, I can't take anything back. You know, all the stuff that I've done. I'm gonna have to live with. I've been living with it, and I can't kill myself over it, and I can only move on and do the best that I can. He's like, which is why you see me now interact with your kids a certain way, interact with you. I call you, hey, you need any help around the house? Because he's a good handyman. Mm-hmm. You know, because he was born and raised in Mexico. You got to do everything on your own. You know, so he knows everything. Like, security cameras. He's like, yeah, I'll wire it, and he wired it up. And then, or you know, the sink wasn't working. He's like, I got it, and he was just doing all this stuff, and then so we had a beer, and then my mom kind of came like 40 minutes later, and then it was kind of like the same thing. Like, but she brought her husband over, and I told my mom, I was like, Mom, you know, basically same thing. And then I told her, I'm sorry, I forgive you, you know. And she got surprised, and she kind of said the same thing. Like, we were really young. I didn't know any better. You know, I went to religion, and that helped me. And I wish I would have done it a long time ago. And then afterwards, when they all left, and Elia's like, how do you feel? I was like, I feel like 1,000 pounds was lifted off my shoulder. And I remember just thinking like, wow, like, you hear it, you know, forgive others, don't, you know, and stuff like that. And it's only really been my parents that I've not forgiven or I just didn't talk about. And then after that was done, I was like, I'm clearly in a new chapter in my life. I feel so much better. And then almost immediately the relationship between us even got close. Like we were cool at that point, right? And they were great with my kids, but it even got better. And then it was like things that we never talked about. I feel like, especially in the Hispanic community, that they just don't talk about certain things, and I don't think that's good. I don't think that's healthy.
What do they avoid?
A lot of stuff, like for example, just you name anything, and it's like, oh, it's your dad or it's your uncle, forgive him, or so, and it's like that's not how that goes, like, or don't talk about it, it's like not necessarily forgive them, it's don't talk about it. Something happens, and they don't talk about it. They don't want to talk about it, because in the especially the old school Mexican way, you just don't talk about it. If your wife, if you beat your wife because you were an alcoholic or something like that, and the next day no one talks about it. Like, hey, we're just not gonna act like we heard you beating on her, or this or this or this or that, or they just don't talk about it. And I thought it was only with my family, but since I'm going to school to become a registered dietitian, and I have a class called Cultural Foods. We dove deep into each culture to really understand that we can't tell them like, hey, you have to eat, organic this, organic that. And when they're like, hey, you're basically dismissing their whole identity.
Yeah.
And then I found it that in the Hispanic, not just Mexicans, they tend to be family oriented, right? And they kind of almost gloss over or neglect certain things because of the family, It's for the family. And it helped me in that way, right? And honestly, that alone would have been great. And then clearly there's me having OG Pumpkin and being on the podcast, like, helped my business so much. Which then
started your own podcast, sucker.
I did because of you, and
not because of me, because you went out and you started it yourself.
Yeah, I mean, but it helped me. It helped me, being on here and talking to you and kicking it with the Field Craft crew and Mike Rillen and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna just do it, and it helped me so much that like, again, like it affected my kids' life, because then now I have more time to be with my kids. Mm-hmm. The kids that not because I was out partying or neglected them on purpose. It's just I was in the military and I was not around for their births, for their first steps, for a lot of it. So now it gave me time to heal that relationship, and then same with my wife. And like I was saying, like my life has changed dramatically. So thank you.
I mean, I don't know if I deserve that thanks. I mean, when we were talking about family, I view conversations. And I'm sure that I made that suggestion based off of my own experience with my own parents. There were periods of time, and I'm sure this happens with all parents and children, where it's closer, farther apart. Something happens and you don't talk about it, right? And so what does that do? Fissure, right? So yeah. It drives people apart. And I remember specifically when you were talking about your mom and dad, thinking about my mom. And I just wish I had a chance. She died of cancer, and I was on a deployment in 2010, and I didn't get much time with her when I got back. And I have regretted ever since then not having a better final conversation. But it was my own. I shouldn't have waited that long. But time is the most valuable thing that we have, and it's free. But once it's gone, it's gone. So I've never had that chance to have that conversation with my mom. And I think about it every day. So when I talk to people, or when people talk to me and they talk about things that they have unsaid, it's like, hey, you don't know how much time you have. Have that conversation with your parents. And I bet your parents thought about it often before you had that conversation, their mistakes. For myself, in my own head, I can get really caught in negatively thinking about the shortcomings that I have had in my life. I haven't been a perfect parent, for sure. The decision to leave my first marriage, it really fractured how much time I have with my kids. My oldest son didn't talk to me for almost 18 months. Completely cut me out of his life. My middle son and my daughter, we would spend time together, but it was uncomfortable for a while. Now it's much, much better. Like I have a much better relationship with all three of my kids, but I could do so much better. I wish I had done so much better. And I'll think about that. They'll be 40 and I'm still going to be thinking about that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that your parents were thinking about it in the same way. So I think it's an incredible thing to be able to sit down and have that conversation. And it doesn't surprise me that you guys ended up being closer because of it. And like you said, like the weight of thoughts, it's fucking real.
Yeah.
You have those conversations. It's like gravity is less effective somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it works, man. And truly, I remember you sitting right where you are right now, having that conversation, thinking about my mom and wishing I had at least had the chance. And maybe it's selfishly, maybe she had the chance to say what she wanted to, but I wish I would have had the chance to say more. And that's, anybody listening to this, if you have something you need to say to somebody, you better say it as soon as possible because we're not guaranteed any more time.
Yeah.
So, because, and again, obviously it'd be a horrific situation, but let's say on your drive home, something would have happened to you, or in the time between you wanted to talk to your parents, something would have happened to them. You don't want that hanging over your head for the rest of your life, or you would imagine them not having been able to have that conversation with you at that dinner and what came from it, because it never would have presented itself.
Definitely. And it came out like a great outcome for me, but people should still do it. And if the other individual doesn't respond in a positive way,
there's nothing you can do about that.
Yeah. Just focus. It's going to help you. It's for you, not for them. And yeah, just, we don't have all the time in the world, as much as we think we do.
We don't. And, I've had some people who have taken the advice and talked to somebody and they're like, well, that fucking sucked. It didn't go the way that I wanted it to. They were super angry. And I'll ask them, like, did you say what you felt like you needed to say? And most of the time, if not always, they'll say yes. I'm like, okay, imagine that there is a rope between you and the person that you were talking with. Put down the rope. Like, they can hold on to it if they want to, but put down your side and move on with your life. That's all you can do.
Yeah.
And it's easier said than done. Some people put the rope down, but they tie it around their foot.
And another thing that came out of it was Michael Dowd, right? He's the SEAL that I couldn't get his last name. I was like, Mike, it's something. So when I saw him again, he's like, man, I heard it, and thank you for bringing me up, And I was like, man, you helped me, and it's I'm a big believer in especially within the veteran community. Nobody eats their own more than veterans, I believe, but we got to help each other, So there are a core individual groups that are helping each other and building each other up. And Michael Dowd helped me out, like almost right after that, he started his own company, Defense Strategies Group, and he brought me on, and we were doing great things, but one of the things that he did was he gave me a job, because before, with each semester, I was working at a yogurt shop, getting yelled at by teenagers, like, hey, why is my acai bowl not ready? And I'm just like, you just placed the order like a minute ago. I have to cut the strawberries and bananas myself.
Yeah, you're about to be wearing this acai bowl.
Yeah. And I was like, man, I was trying to tell him, like, man, I don't think you get it, man. Like, you gave me a job, man. And then after getting to know him more, and he went through the same thing. You get out, and it's not that great. But you got to keep going, and you got to meet people who are helping each other out. And I'm a big believer in that even more. And I, again, whether you guys want to take the credit or not, me as a veteran. Not even just special operations veteran, just a veteran, seeing what I consider the first wave to be you, the all field craft, Matt Best and his crew, with Evan and all these people, or all these veterans who get out, and yes, you guys didn't come out in the same time, but I consider you guys the first wave, like for the first.
I know what you mean. Yep.
Yeah, so the first wave of being successful in something that you're passionate about, and because I remember I saw the first person was Matt Best, and I remember thinking like, damn, him and his crew are making funny videos, and they're doing this, and they're good for them. No one else can do it, and that's how I thought, because I was still active duty. I was like, they will never be done. No one else can do it. And then other veterans did it, and so when I got out, there was this whole wave of veterans who were doing it, and then speaking with you, like, I'm like, you know what, maybe I can too. Maybe I can too. And then I met Mike, and then I met Benji. Benji's the owner of Thrash and Raid, which is a skateboard company, which is the shirt I'm wearing. And
sick shirt, by the way.
Thank you, man. And Benji's a great guy. Like he spent like 17 years in MARSOC, right? And then got out early because he got a call from his wife. Like, I went to the doctors, something was wrong with my kidney, so I went, and guess what? I have kidney failure.
Oh shit.
She's in her 30s. Now she's stage 5. Got out, and he thought he was a lifer, and got out and went to school for business at USC, and then started Thrash and Raid, and it kind of just picked up, and he almost started right when I came from this podcast, left, and then one of my friends, Rod, was killed overseas, and Hero Games charity was having an event in Virginia, and they were like, hey man, from Rod's friend who's still active duty, he called me. He's like, hey man, Ronnie, his wife, for Rod's wife, was like, hey, Ronnie's gonna go to this charity event, and it's in Virginia, and Bedford, Virginia, and she doesn't. I can't make it, man. And can you go? So she has somebody she kind of knows, and I was like, I'll go, man. Whatever it is, I'll go. Like, so I flew to Virginia. I had no idea what to expect. The Hero Games charity is a nonprofit who hosts like SF selection type things, events, and civilians just go through it, right? It's a team building exercise, and all the money raised goes towards the family. But what I like that they did is that they weren't just giving money and then or doing something for them and then shaking their hands off and then okay, next family. It was like, no, they want to be there for them after this event. So when I went over there, I was like, you know what, I'll be a student in the thing. So it was the first time in a long time since I've been out that I was being yelled at to do push-ups in the mud. With the ruck on, and put it over your head. And I was
like, God damn it, this is familiar.
I know. I was like, oh my God. And it was a great event, but like, I mean, not that it was over. I mean, after that it was great, but I don't know what I ate, but it was bad. And halfway I was like, dude, I am going to pee out of my ass right now. So I ran off into the woods, came back, and I didn't have sleeves. And then one of the civilians like, where'd your sleeves go? And then one of the guys like, what do you think? And I must have ran out to the side to pee out of my ass probably like 3 more times. I don't know what it was, what I ate, but afterwards, I mean, it was fun because I saw a community come together, go through the suck together, the best, as close as you can to an actual SF selection.
Did they pay for the privilege of being hammered like that?
Yes. So they pay, and it's active duty SF guys being a cadre.
Can you imagine stroking a check to just get your dick kicked in like they do in selection courses?
Oh, they did it.
I mean, I get it. I know that it's been probably romanticized since the GWAT, and people want to test themselves in the crucible. But I just look back, I'm like, I would pay money not to do that shit again. I would not pay money to do it again.
I'm not there yet. I'm still in the like, fuck yeah, let's do it.
You're younger than me, so you got less miles on you.
I know. Probably in a couple of years, I'll be like, Andy, you know how you were saying? Yeah.
At some point, the allure wears off of paying somebody money to scream at you with a bullhorn and a garden hose.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm so set on this. I don't need this anymore in my life.
Man.
Yeah.
But so I did the event, and then I noticed that one of the sponsors was Thrash and Raid, and so it's JD and Johnny, right? So JD is the active duty guy. Johnny's his brother, who they're from Bedford. and they have a CrossFit gym there. So great place to work out if you're there. But he's like, hey man, aren't you from California? And I was like, yeah. And I was still digesting what had occurred, right? The talk with my dad and my mom, being on the podcast, where the direction clearly I'm going, right? Because where I was going is that's not where I was at in my life. And he goes, hey man, that company's from California. You should hit him up. And I was like, okay, I will. I when I flew back, I was like, I messaged him. I was like, hey man, my name's Cortes. Rob was my friend, and thank you for sponsoring this charity event. If I host events as well for the community, if you ever want to come out. And he's like, I do too. And he's like, I have a toy drive. Come out. And a bunch of veterans are and this needs to be said, and people do, but veterans say like, yeah, reach out. Well, I will reach out, but they don't.
Yeah.
Right. So I took it as me telling him, hey, come to events, and he's like, I have an event right now. You know, because how many people I'm pretty sure I've told them, yeah, I'll make it, man. Oh yeah, don't worry, I'll go, and then they don't go, and then they don't show up, and it's like, well, man, yes, we have to reach out, but other people have to be willing to be like, take that step and take that, you know, and take that invitation and come out. So I went to Oceanside. I bought some toys, brought my family, and then Benji rolls up and this busted ass Honda vehicle that he has. And he opens it up, and it's a trunk full of like brand name skate everything, because that's his world, right? The skate world.
Yeah.
And brand name everything, and he's giving it out to the kids, and I see how his kids interact with him, and immediately I was like, that's a good dude, because kids don't lie, right? And his
they
little
see right through the bullshit.
yeah, and his little ones were acting super cool with him, and he was genuinely wanting to teach them how to skate and stuff like that. And I was like, man, this is a cool guy. And he just started his company, right? I didn't know about his wife. I didn't know about this. I was like, this is just a one happy, joyful individual. And then you hear about all this, you know, and he was, you know, using that as fuel to do positive things in the community. And one of the big things that goes on when you get out is that you lose your purpose and you lose your community. Whether you know it immediately or not, that's what's happening. So you have to find your purpose, your next purpose, and your community. And that's what he was doing. And that's what I was doing with OG Pumpkin. I found my purpose, right? I found my community, and he was doing the exact same thing on the other end, right? And then we just teamed up, and then Mike starts his company. And I truly believe, and then Hero Games comes in too, and I truly believe that we are the second wave to show the younger generation, dude, you can get out and you can be successful and you can do whatever it is you want to do, whether it's sell leather belts, coffee, surfboards, whatever. It doesn't even have to be like in our realm, right? It can be something else, and you can be successful. And it's the power of teamwork.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would find a lot more enrichment if it was completely different or out of the realm. Like podcasting, as an example. Somebody was asking me this the other day of what I do for a living, and I always struggle. Like, I don't actually know what the fuck I do for a living. The good answer that I have now, my business partner and I were talking about this a few days ago. So we're opening up a Black Rifle Coffee shop. It's like literally 2 blocks west of where we are. But now when people ask me what I do, I go, oh, I have a coffee shop. And it ends all the other questions. Because before, like, what do you do? I'm like, well, I have conversations with people, and then they'll say, about what? I'm like, all sorts of shit. What else do you do? I do public speaking. Like, okay, what do you talk about? I'm like, this is just terrible. I need a better answer for all this. Yeah. But the podcast was the antithesis of the quiet professional. And occasionally people will send me emails basically like, hey, fuck you. You're supposed to be a quiet professional. How could you come out and talk like this? And my response to them always is like, hey, I appreciate the feedback. I'm not negative to people. I try not to be negative to people on either social media or the direct email, but hey, I appreciate the feedback. I actually try as hard as I can to talk as little as possible about me. And the things I do talk about, trust me, you could find on Google. You know, I do reference things from SEAL training because it provides the opportunity for good analogies. But if you want to put me in the same category as other people out there, the term recently in an email was pimping the trident, which is a common term inside of the SEAL teams.
Yeah.
You know, putting the trident on a book or a hat or fill in the blank. And my theory on all that is people's experiences. They're free to do with them whatever they want to do.
Yes.
If you want to get the trident tattooed on your face, I mean, don't, but also I'll pay for it if you want to. And then I want to document that for content. But if you want to do that and you earned the trident, do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
I'm not ever going to write a book because I don't have anything to write a book about. But I do love sitting down and talking to people.
I don't know. I think that's a lie. I think you got a lot to talk about that can be helpful for a lot of people.
It's already been all written. So Glover always pushes this shit on me too. He's like, I'll write the book and I'll narrate it. I'm like, do you even need me there? Can we just like what are we talking about? But it's so some people will push back on it. Oftentimes they're from other branches of the service. Or like one of the most common ones I get is, well, Army guys would never start a podcast like you are. I'm like, okay, like cool, do whatever they want to. This podcast to me has been potentially the most enriching thing that I've ever done, because I can sit here and have conversations with guys like you and then have you talk about the impact that the conversation had on your life and what you were able to do from it, and where other people who were able to accomplish amazing things. It's like, I'm sorry that's the background that I have. I try to tread on it lightly, but I'll never be able to escape it. And so people think that I'm pimping the trident, then cool. Thanks for the feedback. Like move along.
See, with something like that, when people make these statements, years ago, I used to almost immediately just attack that, right? But then everything's deeper than that. For somebody to take their time,
they're usually unhappy in and of themselves.
Yeah, because I don't know of anybody who is successful in life, and I don't mean successful as in money. I mean successful as in has a loving relationship with a significant other or their friends or whatever the community is, has all that, right? Kids are happy, they're happy, they feel fulfilled, and still decides to write negative stuff like that. Because before, I think you asked me, do you get any negative stuff? And I was like, no. And at the time I didn't, but now, oh man.
Welcome to the club.
I've been called a race traitor. I've been called...
Really?
Yeah. I've been called, I'm still a thug. That I'm stupid for doing this or stupid for doing that, or people will not take me serious. Just about almost everything and anything. And people just, wow.
Yeah.
And
so here's the danger in that too. And let me know if you fall into this trap. Let's say you get 100 messages. Mm-hmm. 2 of them are fuckballs and they're negative.
Yeah.
Do you ever spend more time focusing on those 2 than
No.
the positive 98? Because I do. That's the trap. You're like, I will put the energy back into thinking about the 2 negative, and you'll disregard the 98 positive. I've received emails and messages from people who, and I don't understand why this would be the case, but I'm very grateful that it is, who said that they made the decision not to kill themselves because of the podcast.
Yeah.
Or made a relationship decision. And a lot of them a lot of them are based on the conversations I'll have with my dad, whose call sign is Dick Broom Actual, because of this glorious Dick Broom that he has.
Yeah.
Like it makes Burt Reynolds look like a child. That's how good his mustache is.
All right.
But people will say that they listened to those episodes and they went and talked to their dad, or talked to their mom. And it's the power of that is unbelievable. And then I'll get these 2 messages and you're just like, motherfucker, it's on.
No, you can't be doing that.
I don't though. I try to.
Oh, okay.
Well, I just lied to you. Sometimes I do.
No.
I try not to.
No.
I got an email the other day, the guy's signature block, it said cagalicious. I'm like, you must be in the Army, son.
I don't, because one, my friends clown on me more than those messages. So,
for sure. And they actually know you.
Yeah, and they actually know me. Yeah. And I have a good group of friends that I don't have yes men around me, as in anything I say, they're like, yeah. No, it's like if I'm fucking up, they tell me, right?
Well, that's an actual friend. Friends tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear.
Yeah, so they are always telling me, Mike was like, hey, you better not put hydraulics on your limo. And I was like,
Glover said that?
no, not.
Okay. I was going to say, I could see Glover going the other way with that.
Yeah,
hydraulics, off-road tires, rooftop tent, even though you could probably sleep inside of that thing.
No, Michael Dowd's like, no, he's like, hey, you better not put hydraulics on that limo. I heard you talking to Ben Chief that you want to put hydraulics on it. I was like, yeah. And he's like, no. And I said, but I did it. Anyways, but so then it's like, I don't attack those people, but I like to see, put myself in their shoes and where are they coming with this?
Yeah.
You know, with like so people who don't know my background is, long story short, grew up poor, got into gangs, eventually started selling guns and drugs, then went into the Army. I was fortunate enough to be part of the 75th Ranger Regiment. I spent some time in Iraq, Afghanistan. I got out. Now I'm going to school to become a registered dietitian. I compete and train in Muy Thai and Jiu-Jitsu, and I competed while I was active duty. So I'm all these little worlds, right? It's easy for me to because I'm from there. I'm doing these things, and so people like from the low income community, the gang world, the hood, all that, like, not all of them. This isn't a representation of all of them, but like I'll get one or two like, you're a race traitor, and they're like, you love America more than you love your people. And I'm like, first of all, I'm born here, so like these are my people. I'm American. My family comes from Mexico, and so I'm the first one in my family to be born here. So yes, I was raised with certain Mexican traditions and stuff like that, but I'm more Americanized than anything. I love them both, but I'm American, and just because I serve this country, and I clearly identify more as Americanized than doesn't mean I'm a race traitor, and or people that are like, well, you're still a thug, it doesn't matter. He's like, I hate when people change and they think that it can justify their wrongdoings, and I've never been that way, where how I am and what I'm and the work I'm doing in the veteran community does not erase what I did. I don't see it that way, but at the same time, I don't kill myself during my past.
Well, you also don't seem to be unwilling to take accountability for it. There's a huge difference between people who will say, well, this is who I am now, so nothing that I did in the past matters, or look at what I'm doing now, so nothing I did in the past matters, versus, hey, I am constantly trying to improve myself. I'm trying to learn from my mistakes. I'm completely accountable for the things that I have done in the past, and I will be held accountable for those things, but this is still the positive direction I'm trying to go. Those two people are very, very, very different beasts.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's my mindset, and I've surrounded myself with individuals like that we are always improving. We're always trying to and it's hard, because you can't just do it for a week or a month. Like, that's you every single day, and it might sound overwhelming to some people, but what I like to say is that I don't see it as people message me like, how do you do this all day every day? I'm like, well, I don't do it all day every day. I just do it for that one day, and then I go to sleep and then wake up and then I make the decision to do it again. And then there are days where I fail. There are days where, hey, I don't go work out, or I make an excuse and don't go to the gi class, even though my professor said, hey, you got to go to the gi class to get better.
You're doing one today, you son of a bitch.
And so I do fail, but it's like, you just have to keep going, and then you're going to, rack up more successful days and days of progress than you don't, and eventually good stuff is going to happen, and you'll get there.
Micro failures, they happen. What you want to avoid is macro failures.
Yes.
And people will ask me the same thing, or how do you accomplish a goal? It's like, listen, set a huge goal that scares the living shit out of you. That's probably a point where you realize it's valuable, because if you set a goal and you're going to accomplish it, that's kind of a waste of time. Like, actually put yourself out there, list out everything that you need to do, like all these small sequential steps, and then just focus on the next step. And if you have a setback or a failure, like, just focus on the next small step you need to take, and don't let something micro, like skipping a jiu-jitsu class, which I've never done, tired or hungover or whatever it would be. But I didn't skip a week. Like, I'll take a day and then I get back on the horse. So I'll allow for a micro failure, even though I'm not aiming to have those, but I don't allow it to impact the macro goal. Yeah.
And when you vocalize these goals even more, it if it scares you, that's a good thing. That's when you know you
Yep.
start living. You know, I remember when I told myself I was going to start taking jiu-jitsu serious, and I just, because I said it, and I told the jiu-jitsu coach too. From I train at Classic Fight Team in Fountain Valley. The head coach is Tyler Wombles, phenomenal coach. He's like one of the biggest names right now that he's helping train was TJ Dillashaw for his last fight. He was cornering him. The jiu-jitsu program is by Sid and Miles. They run a phenomenal jiu-jitsu program, and what I love most is that they're great with kids. Because just because you're since we're talking about jiu-jitsu, just because you're a black belt, it doesn't mean you're a great instructor. You know,
Doesn't mean you're a great person either.
100%, and they are great with kids. You know, and I love that they know how to teach and talk to the kids.
Yeah.
So like, of course, me being the father of my 10-year-old son and my 8-year-old girl, I want to teach them everything, but you can't teach them everything. Sometimes things that you're saying, they're going to learn from somebody else.
It's almost as if your children don't listen.
Right.
But if somebody else says exactly the same thing, they sit there and they go, uh-huh,
Yep.
uh-huh. And in your head, just like, motherfucker, I just told you that for the last year.
I know. That's how I was. But then I was like, you know what? Do you care more about that you taught them, or just the
That
fact
they learned? Yeah.
That they learned. And so big props to them. But and to Sid and Miles. And then, so I told Sid, I was like, and Miles was like, I'm gonna go to jiu-jitsu now, because before that I'd only competed and trained in Muay Thai. And Tyler was the head coach, but Diego Paez was the assistant coach, and he's my main trainer. And once I told Sid I was going, I put it out there in the world.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not like I was not going to see him. We're in the same gym. They teach my kids. So, you know, was that goal scary? Yeah, because one, I don't know anything about the ground. So when I met you here, I think it had only been a few months, and then now since then, I mean,
Yeah, I see you posting up pictures of you competing.
yeah, I've competed 3 times in the last year. I've placed silver and 2 bronze.
That's awesome. And you were competing in no-gi, right?
Yeah, no gi.
Yep. Do you realize that people actually wear clothes often?
You know that.
I'm joking. I have no issue with no-gi whatsoever.
No. I'm right there with you. I am right there with you, because I was like, what is going on with some of these outfits? I'm like, bro, what you're wearing is skin tight.
It is, but I also deeply respect the fashion game that is involved with no-gi.
It's big.
I didn't realize it. I went to the Origin camp in Maine, which anybody listening to this who likes jiu-jitsu needs to go to the Origin immersion camp. It's fucking jiu-jitsu summer camp for adults.
I'm trying to go.
You should absolutely go.
I messaged Peter.
Pete. Yeah, there's
Pete.
hundreds of people, and they'll do gi and no gi. The school we train at, they teach a couple no-gi classes. Most of them are gi, but we'll get no-gi rolls in open mat, because you can just pop your kimono top off. But most of the classes are in gi. So and there's a couple guys there who really like no-gi, but I only got a chance to see them with their rash guard top and like gi bottoms.
Yeah.
We roll into the immersion camp. Holy shit. I feel like some of these people, before coming to the camp, were doing full like Zoolander fashion shows.
Yeah.
Mix match top and bottom.
Oh,
like
yeah.
Dragon suits where it's like off to this side and the legs are this side. There was a guy there in a full Deadpool outfit. Spats and long sleeve rash guard. That fucking rainbows, unicorns. I would just marvel. I would just sit back and be like, the fashion game here is understated but overwhelming.
They go hard. They go hard.
We're talking deep internet shopping sessions.
Yes.
Yeah.
And somebody told me, they're like, hey man, your art is perfect for rash guards.
It actually is.
And I was like, no. And then a bunch of what made me pull the trigger on making rash guards was some Rangers from 1st Battalion were like, hey man, like, dude, can I just get a custom made rash guard? And
yes, for $178.
Yeah.
And that's, you do one-offs, you're going to pay for one-offs.
Yeah. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it for the boys. And I contacted a couple people, and they all left me on red. And then I just was like, you know what? I went with Edgar from Eager Ones, who makes all the rash guards for the 10 planets.
Okay.
And I was like, well, he's probably going to say no. And then he's like, hey man, yeah, I'll make you an order. And I was like, I just want like 5. And he's like, 5, because he's used to doing big orders.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, there's really for my friends, and I'm not even trying to make a profit. I don't want to sell them. And he's like, yeah. And then he told me the price, and I was like, oh shit.
Can I get 2?
Yeah. and I was like, okay. And then word spread, and then so I made 10, 12 more, and then they sold, but I made no profit. And then I made 30 more, and I barely made a profit. And then I asked them, like, how much are you selling these rash guards for? And they're like, how much are you selling them for? I was like, $40. And he's like, no, man.
Did he start laughing at you on the phone?
Yes. He's like, you. That's why you're not making a profit.
Yeah.
I was like, well, because I don't want first it was for the boys. It wasn't to make a profit off them. They're the way I see it. Yes, I serve, but they're the ones serving.
Yeah.
Right. That's me, but that's an old book. They're right now. They're current. So my hat goes off to them. The men and women who are doing this now. So I didn't want to make a profit, and then so now eventually I did place big orders and
adjusted your price point.
Yes. Yes. And I'm not sure if you got it, but I sent you one.
Did you send me a rash guard?
I did.
I didn't get it.
Oh, that sucks.
You son of a bitch.
I sent it like right when I made it.
Damn it. No, I didn't. I don't think I got it. Well, I tell you what, I'm bummed that you're here. Well, I'm not bummed that you're here today, but Friday I have some new rash guards coming out. I'll send you some as well too. I made some for the podcast.
I bought one, and you know how there's like a slight difference. So I don't like to wear my rash guards like skin tight. We've all seen those no gi dudes where like
you're a little bit more of a baggy.
Yeah, just a little bit, right? So when
the Origin ones they have a little bit more. I'm going to use a technical term, grippy material.
Yes, because
they're a little bit tighter fit.
Because when I bought it and I put it on, I was like,
that's when you get in the mirrors, you're just like,
yeah, but I was like, that's just not my style. And I was like, this is skin tight. And I tried to go for a large, sold out. And then when you made more, sold out. And then I was just like, I missed it by what happened?
They sell fast, man. I completely underestimated and still have absolutely no idea the quantity that I should order for rash guards, because podcasting, as you know that you have one now, you hit upload and you have no control whatsoever as to where it goes and who downloads it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm assuming that the only 2 types of people that would buy a rash guard that I make would be a surfer and a jiu-jitsu player.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you could use the jiu-jitsu rash guards for surfing. I'm not an expert in rash guards by any stretch, but those are the only 2 genres of people other than John Danaher that wear a rash guard for an activity.
Yeah.
So I don't know how many listen though, and I don't necessarily know where they are.
Well, you got to triple, quadruple that number because
I am not doing that. That
out.
check gets really large that you have to write to the company that's making them.
That people forget about that. I'm like, so there's certain ways you can make products, right? And I learned this all the hard way. There's like a made to order with t-shirts, DTG, right? So you big computer printer, but for like a t-shirt, and you make it then and there. Or you can do
low margins.
Yeah, low margins. Yep. Or you do screen printing, and
which is also low margins until you can order large numbers.
Yes.
Not that there's not margin there, but if people think that you make 10 t-shirts and are going to pay your rent off of 10 t-shirts, no, you're going to make like $20.
Yeah. And then if you're like me and only be like, well, I paid this much, so I'm gonna up it $5. That'll work. No, that's not gonna work.
I went through that phase though too. So I am just now, I think 5 years into the podcast and maybe 3 years into having any merchandise associated with it. It's a learning process for sure. I still to this day couldn't tell you which shirts are going to sell better than others. I'm still trying to figure out the numbers. The rash guard is a baffling one to me.
Yeah.
Until it made a little bit more sense once I saw the Origin came, like, oh, you guys have a lot of these.
Yeah.
So it's the people who use them to participate in jiu-jitsu, they're like, well, I have 7, but I think 9 is the number.
Yeah. No, I know dudes with just they're like, oh, I have more rash guards than t-shirts.
Yeah.
And
but I still don't know how many to buy to sell. So I have since my first order, I doubled it, then doubled it, then doubled it, and doubled it again.
You're gonna have to double the double.
I am not writing that check.
That's right.
I refuse to do that because I pay for it up front.
Yeah. Same as I. So when people are like, you should do this, and I'm like, I want to, but I just don't have that much money to make that big order.
Yeah.
But and you said something funny, like you never know what sells. There's art that I've paid like $550 to $600. and I sold 2 T-shirts. And then there's art that my friend Jacob, who's been a huge part of OG Pumpkin, he just made it for the fun of it, and I've sold thousands of those T-shirts. And
you probably would have bet on the one you paid the money for to sell better.
Yeah, well, I do like the art.
Yeah.
The fact that it didn't sell, that's another thing, but I love that art, but I'm just like, that's a banger. And
then he goes up for sale and it's not. And you're like, son of a bitch, I am the worst at this ever. I give up.
Yeah.
No, the struggle's real with that shit.
And so the one who sold the most, it's called Just Keep Going, right? And it's a ghost with a heavy backpack on it, a rucksack, and then a rifle. And we made it because, you know, he was a Marine, Jacob was a Marine, and when you're in the suck, we all know that feeling. Right? We know that feeling when you're in the suck and maybe you want to quit, maybe you don't want to quit, but it's just fucking sucks. But you just got to keep going. Just keep going. And I put it up there and people were like, when are you going to sell it? When are you going to sell it? And then, but it also, because now I'm a veteran, it's when you get out, you know, I've been at my lowest point where I thought I was going to get divorced. I wasn't seeing my kids. I was sleeping on the futon in my aunt's house and asking her for $5 so I can go put gas in my car to go to the shop where the teenagers were yelling at me, well, how come their acai bowl isn't done, right? And I remember being like, I wouldn't do it, but I can see why people just say, you know what, man? I've had enough. So I said, you know, and it's also just keep going because it gets rough out here. In life, you don't have to, this isn't just because the company it's moving in a certain direction. It's not just for veterans and active duty. It's, man, you just got to keep going.
Yeah, the suck has nothing to do with the military. The military has a unique type of suck.
Yes.
But life in general will provide that for you regardless of what you do.
Yes. And the number is 305 right now. I have 305 people who've got that design tattooed on them.
Just keep going?
Yeah. Well, it varies from some other OG Pumpkin designs, but it's about that many people. And I was talking to Ball Bros, the leather patch company, and I was like, man, I remember when I started, people were like, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. There's no market for Halloween stuff, art and stuff like that. And
made in October, that's not true.
Yeah, right? and he was telling me something that I knew, but I had not said it out loud. And he's like, well, your art's, I like your art, man. It's cool, but I think you know that it's not your art, why it sells. I think you know that it's what the company represents, what you're doing, and the work speaks for itself, and people see it and they feel it, and it hits them, and it orients, it hits that at home that's why they're willing to like. I've had multiple squads send me the pictures, like, hey, the whole squad got it. Cops being like, hey man, I changed it. And instead of a rifle, it's a pistol, and then my badge number. Or medical professionals or firefighters, you know, like, oh, I put an axe and a hose on it, and people from militaries from like Spain, the UK, you know, who've gone and they're like, hey, I heard you on Andy Stump's podcast. I was getting coffee, and somebody's like, I heard you on Andy Stump's podcast, and I was like, man. And they love it, and they're like, I started following you, started seeing what you're doing, and like, man, that's so cool. And first of all, I know when people see my page, my personal page, it kind of throws them off because you're like, what does this guy do? What does he not do? Because I got a truck. I got a truck because I put the limo on hydraulics, and Mike's like, hey man, since you put hydraulics on that limo, I don't want to. And he said it in a nice way, right? But he's like, I don't want to hear why you can't make it to work because. And I was like, you're right. You're right. Yeah. And I was like, so I got the truck. Business is good.
Yep.
So Defense Strategist Group, what we do is we teach anywhere from, we've trained SWAT teams to mothers who've never touched a firearm.
Yeah.
We do private security. We do consulting, private training, and I can't say their names, but because us being based out of LA, we train people who I never thought would be into firearms, especially what's happening.
Recognizable names. Yes.
Yeah. Grammy award winning people and people in certain businesses and that I can't mention. I'll tell you.
Yeah, for sure.
and especially what's happening, not just right now, not just in Ukraine, but what happened in COVID and in the beginning. Yes, it's not like this zombie producer thing that we thought it was, but nobody knew what it was in the beginning, right? People were scared. There was looting, and especially me being from SoCal, I saw it all. I saw the riots. I saw all of this, and people got scared. And then there's muggings, and then there's certain things that are in place right now that are not helping law enforcement. That these thugs, me being a former, individual who sold guns and sold drugs, that if that version of me was here now, it would be the golden era right now, because I know they can't do anything. I know law enforcement they're going to catch me and catch and release. And
if they're even going to engage.
And even if they're going to engage, right? Because law enforcement, they don't feel backed. They don't feel like they're supported. I have friends who are, SWAT teams, and family members who are in SWAT teams and local PD, and they're like, we don't feel like we have the backing of our people. And he's like, and it bummed me out, because he was a family member. He's also a SWAT team member, and he was like, when people ask me what do, I don't tell them I'm in law enforcement, because automatically they're gonna think something of me, and
that's a sad state of affairs.
Yeah, and that. I was like, man, that's fucked up. And he's like, I tell him I'm a garbage man. I take out the trash for the city. And I remember being like, man, like that's where we're at a point. And then almost the same people who are portraying law enforcement in a certain way, and maybe their heart is in the right area, but they're like, guns are bad. It's kind of funny to see. Those are the same people right now that are praising the Ukraine civilians that, defend yourself, give them more guns, give them more this, and, to fight against Russia. And
they probably very quietly show up at your training events. And hey, I just got this new tool. I don't know how to use it. I'm new to the scene. Maybe you could teach me some things.
And what's happening? Business is booming for us because of that, but I don't like it. I don't like that business is booming for DSG, because, like, I'm not sure if you've seen the video. This happened in LA. It was a very rich area. It's a mother opened the gates to her home. She had her stroller, and as she was walking in, two individuals came and mugged her.
I did not see that video. That sucks.
And we were having a class, and one of the guys was like, "Yeah, have you seen that video?" And I was like, "Yeah, we've all seen it." And he's like, "Yeah, man, that was near me." And then as the class progressed, he's like, as a matter of fact, I live a couple houses down.
Oh shit!
That's why I'm here. And I remember thinking, like, dude, I like that you're here, but like, I don't like why you're here.
Well, some people, they have to have that visceral experience thrown in their face before they're gonna believe. I wish I could go around and think the best of people and assume that everybody has the best of intentions, but I cannot anymore based off my experience. I'd rather prepare for the worst case scenario and have all the tools that I could possibly want, but not need.
Yeah.
And I think especially in that town, I mean, let's be honest, that town is largely built off of make-believe.
Yeah.
I think it's easy to bury your head in the sand.
Yeah, and the biggest thing was, we called it, like a lot of us, when we have these conversations, and I think it's important to have conversations and not just say the same little one-liners that I hear. I love the gun community, I love the veteran community, but some portion of it is very toxic, and they'll say things like libtards and
oh yeah, and you're just turning people off.
Yeah, you're turning people off, and then also like, hey man, aren't you a grown man? What are we doing here? Is this elementary school? In the playground we're making up, funny names for them, like, or how about we have conversations and address how we're going to fix things, or what are we going to do? Action, right? I'm more of an action than just let me just fucking spew out negativity all day, every day.
Well, take it back to the email response, like you were saying. You try to see it through somebody else's eyes. I wasn't born and raised in LA. I was born and raised in Santa Cruz, so just up the coast. But I lived a bunch of time in San Diego and LA. And let's view it through the lens of somebody who comes from a very high net worth area in the LA County, like, maybe near Beverly Hills or fill in the blank. Their odds of encountering violence in earlier time periods, I would say pre-COVID, super low. I can totally understand somebody's headspace being a completely different lens and optic on the world growing up there versus our experience of going overseas and actually seeking out violence. There's no way we're going to view it the same.
Yeah.
And I may not agree with what they think, but it makes more sense to me when I can sit back and try to view it through their eyes and have a conversation. But to me, I don't know if it's the same with you. The second somebody starts with libtard, it's like I'm done. Like I'm out of the conversation.
Yeah.
I have no interest in it whatsoever. And also, for the people who talk like that, you're actually your own worst enemy. Whatever point you're trying to make, you're actually standing in the way of that point ever actually being made because you're just turning people off.
Oh, 100%. And what people don't like to hear, I was having a conversation with somebody. We were at a retreat and there was downtime, right? And he was black. Well, I'm going to say he was black because he was black, and this is very important. The individual, he was like, hey, man, he's like, how is the military for you? How was it? Like, you being, Mexican, and, did you experience racism? And I was like, yeah, man. And I was like, but you got to change that through action, and it's not going to be fast. And you're not going to change someone's opinion by 30-second, simple-minded, one-sided video or a meme or you yelling at them and calling them names. It takes action. And then he wasn't agreeing with me on that. I gave him the example. He's like, no. He's like, it's you have to basically almost the opposite of what I just said, like the protest and being, and like protesting, okay, that's cool, and vocalizing, but like that's using anger is not going to work. And I gave the example of there's this one guy who when I was in the military, he was like, hey man, he's like, for a Mexican, you're not that bad. And we joke, civilians who don't know, we joke about everything and anything in the military. So
it's all on the table.
Yeah.
Race, color of the skin, religious belief, it's on the table.
So and I took it as a joke, but then he kept saying that after a while, and then I remember thinking like that's not really a joke, and then I would see how he would carry himself and who he would talk to and not talk to, and who he liked to listen and not like to listen. And then after like about a year, he was like, how I used to say, you're not bad for a Mexican. I wasn't joking, and I was like, yeah, I've kind of figured that. And he's like, but I learned that from my dad. I was told that all you just come
generational.
I was told that all you guys just come and try to just rape this country, and I love my dad, and so that's what I was taught, but I see that that's not true, and it took time, and I gave him that example, and he was like, no, because it has to be now, and I'm like,
it's not the way it works.
That is not the way it works, So for to take it back to the gun thing, it's like these people who never faced that danger. Now they're facing that danger. Now they're like, holy shit, I should probably learn how to defend myself. I had people who I never thought would message me at the beginning of COVID, like, what gun should I buy? And I was just like, yes. So you can either be like, I fucking told you so, see you dumbass,
which is pointless.
Or you can be like, as a matter of fact, here, education, you should do this, you should do that. I can help you. I can, and then now it's not even a team thing or a side thing. It's like now they see this and then they're like, okay, well, I was wrong about this. I was wrong about that, and so now I'm doing this.
Have they changed the concealed carry laws at all in Cali? Because having a gun at your house is great, assuming that you're at your house all the time with the gun. But my experience, especially in San Diego, like good luck getting a CCW.
I hear it's a lot easier.
Okay.
I hear that the sheriffs are a lot easier, and a lot of people have told me like, hey man, your time is now. Like if you want one, you should do it. And I should do it because it's the right thing to do. But like, I mean, I've been carrying a gun since I was like 15, 14. So like the idea of a concealed carry, I was just like, why am I going to go pay and waste my time? But I hear.
So you don't go to jail.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's like.
Especially if you're teaching firearms, I'd probably get one if I were you.
Yes.
Follow the law on that one.
Yes.
Yeah.
So cause now that I'm doing that, well, I am doing all the paperwork and all that stuff, and not.
Well, if they are actually handing them out at this point, I would do it because, again, never living in LA County, I heard nightmares about people trying to get concealed weapons permits.
Yeah, it was never going to happen. But because I'm so into the law enforcement community as well, they tell me, like, hey man, for people who don't know, there is a huge gun community in California. There's what social media shows you about a lot of things, and then there's the reality of things. And California is not filled with gun haters. There is a huge gun community in California. And then when we're talking about this, people are like, we don't care about those Americans, these civilians doing this. We care about the gangbangers with the guns. That's what we're after. We're not trying to, there's all the veterans who have guns. We're not after them. We're just after the criminals, and stuff like that. But yes, I'm doing the right thing because now the company is growing. It's getting big, to the point where we all bought trucks. We're all.
What'd you buy?
I bought a Ford Ranger, a Ranger for a Ranger, and
Ford Ranger. So you got like a little mini truck.
It's the biggest version of them because I've seen this.
It's the biggest version of their small truck. Don't
Yes.
try to church this shit. Right? It's smaller than an F-150, which in my mind is
Yes.
the entry level truck.
Well, because I used to have, because I need it just for work, right? So because my daily driver is my limo on hydraulics. When people don't know, they picture the long limo, but it barely qualifies as a limo. It's a presidential limo. Like you have seats facing this way, and then you have seats facing like you're facing me.
Yeah. In the back, right? 4 seats.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that's my car, and kind of hard with traffic and stuff like this. And I was like, I need something just to carry when we do have range days, the steel, the paper targets, and everything. And at first, I was like, you know what? Let me just get one of those like little Nissan vans, like and then Analia was like, why not a truck? And I was like, okay, you said it first. You said truck. And then
once you go truck, you never go back, man. They're the way to go.
Yes. But before, my first vehicle that I had was this huge old Chevy truck, like the old school. I like those body shapes.
Yeah.
And it was the extended cab long bed.
Oh, sweet.
And on
probably about the same size as your limo.
Yes. And on a huge lift. And people would always like make fun of me when they saw me when I was they would still in the military. Like they see me go into it, they're like, "Dude, that is such a huge truck, and it's a small human being driving it."
They're probably going to associate that with little dick syndrome.
Yeah,
little dick, big truck.
And speaking of that, so what is above average dick vehicle? Because
above average dick vehicle, probably a lifted F-150.
Okay.
Average. Little above.
Okay. Because, like, I never understood that. They're like, little. So if you have a muscle car, little dick. And I was like,
you have a huge truck. It's the assumption is you have a little dick.
Yeah. So if you have a Prius, does that mean you got the world's biggest
If
dick?
you have a Prius, it means you're just walking around with fucking Thor's hammer between your legs.
I think that's
just
what that is.
Mjolnir, just dragging on the ground. Can't even be lifted.
So I wanted to get a big truck just like that old one I had. But I was like, man, do I really want another long, big vehicle? It's
not in LA.
Yeah, and I was like, man, parking fucking sucks. I was like, I just need it to do the job.
What do you have covering the bed?
Nothing.
All right, I'm going to get you one of those Diamondback covers. Those things are badass. And I'm actually one of their ambassadors, so that'll be an easy one. You can put like 1,600 pounds on the top of that thing. It's lockable. They're badass.
Oh, dope.
Weatherproof.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So that's what I have. It's like it's a 4-door, the beefed up version of the Ford Ranger, which I love. It does the job. But yeah, I mean,
let's be honest. You bought it because of the name.
I made sure to make that joke first in the group chat because I was like, so this
you had to get it out of the way.
Yes, because this is so DSG in the group chat. We have a bunch of active duty Navy SEALs. We have Adam. He was a SEAL. Some of them are vary in their position in the SEAL teams. So, I know they don't want me to name it, but it's just SEALs.
Yeah,
right?
just best to leave them out of it.
So Mike's a SEAL. Benji's Marsoc. Fran was a SF officer, and then you have a Ranger. So you basically have all the special operations in the company, which is in the group chat. And I was like, if I don't make this joke right now, they're going to fucking clown on me.
It will literally be the first thing that they type in there if you don't do it first.
Yeah.
That was actually the varsity move.
Yeah. So and I can tell it because somebody was like, they said something like, well, that you take the fun out of it.
That was the point.
Yeah.
Moving on to the next.
Yeah, on to the next.
Dude, did you get your limo sorted? I saw on your social media it got detonated by a garbage truck.
Was this before I came here?
No, it was after.
After,
This
right?
is like the last few months.
Yes. So I was getting ready. So I do DSG, and so that's my income, right? And I also go to school, do the GI Bill, get that PAH, and then OG Pumpkin as well. You know, DSG wasn't to where it's at now, so I pulled from everything. But then now it's to the point because DG's is paying me so well that OG Pumpkin has basically become a nonprofit, so I can do a lot. And I was getting ready to link up with some veterans and law enforcement for jiu-jitsu, right? And I was gonna give out rash guards and stuff like that. Because like, yes, I do have to sell some stuff to make a profit to keep it going.
The products don't pay for themselves.
Yes.
Unless you make them pay for themselves.
And I was literally putting a rash guard on, and I hear a loud bang, my car alarm, and then my son go, "Dad, somebody hit your car." And I was like, ugh. And I walk out in my rash guard in my shorts. I open the door, and the front end of my 1992 Lincoln Town Car limo is fucking smashed. And I have cameras all around my house, so it's parked in front of my house, and so I can see it. And the first thing the driver tells me, he's laughing. He's like, "Shit happens," and
Jesus.
and he was around my age, right?
Yeah, mind you, this was a garbage man.
Yeah, garbage man. So he's around my age, and I'm not sure if, like I said, I like to put myself in other people's shoes. Maybe he was nervous, maybe whatever. But I was like, I remember thinking like, if you hit him, now you're in trouble.
Oh yeah.
And then they may not want to fix your limo as quick or at all. And then not to mention you're in front of your son, and if you're trying to teach them perfect times on when you should defend yourself, it's not that. You know, even though that's fucking made me upset, but that's not. Just because someone made you upset, that doesn't mean you have to go hit them.
Well, it's a good lesson too, and I try to highlight this with my kids, that things really don't matter. Like, you can get upset. Obviously, you care deeply about that car, what it means, what you use it for business. But at the end of the day, it's not a risk to life, limb, or eyesight. So you can show your kids there are things to get upset about, and there are things that, you know what, we're just going to take this unique challenge as it comes our way and work our way through it. Like, there's a lot of learning that can come from that.
Yeah. And so then they hit it. They brought out a representative, and he told me, he's like, "Hey man, you're going to we're gonna call you. A representative's gonna call you. We'll get this worked out." And I was like, and then I looked at the security cameras after he left. The dude didn't cut right as he should have, hit it, and then he backed into it. and I was like, so it just turned out that I told Analia, I gave them my wife's contact info too, because I was like, we're going to a private ranch to train some people up north. You don't have signal at all. You only have Wi-Fi when you're at their base camp.
Yeah.
So when I come back after 3 days, and they're like, nothing, we haven't got anything. And people were already telling me like, hey man, you need to lawyer up. And finally somebody calls me after 8 days. So this is 8 days of the limo just being there. I also make income, like I said, to sell shirts. I go to gyms that I set up and I sell t-shirts, and it's sometimes as high as like $1,800 just in that afternoon.
That's awesome, man.
And nobody fucking called me for a week, and I remember struggling in my head for 2 weeks because I was like, what am I gonna do? Like, all the OG Pumpkin money I fucking spent but I was like, man, the ranch money will cover this and that, but like I still need to cover all my other bills. And so for 2 weeks I had to figure it out, but then private training with DSG covered that. But for 2 weeks I was like, what am I gonna do? And then so after the 2 weeks, then I felt less stressed, but I was like, I feel like they're ignoring me. And then somebody calls me, the lady calls me, and she's like, we're just gonna total it. And I was like, no. I was like, she's like, what is the price of a town car? And it was like $1,200. And I was like, no, I have a Lincoln Town Car limo that is part of my business.
Yeah. Relatively unique, not just a normal Lincoln Town Car.
Yeah, I sell t-shirts based off the limo. like it's I made it into art and it sells. And when I host events, SWAT teams want to take pictures in front of the limo because they've seen the limo, they heard about the limo. I use it to transport, product so I can set up and sell. Like it's a huge part of my business. Like I do this and that for the community. And she literally told me, well, there is no proof to what you're saying is true. And I remember like I took that to heart and upset me. And so I sent her pictures with blurred out faces of SWAT teams, of veterans, of the art that is on based off the limo of my websites and interviews like this podcast and articles written about the company, and it mentions the limo. And I was like, this is such a huge part of my life, in my business and my livelihood. And she got all that info, and I didn't hear anything for 2 weeks. And then they're like, we need bank statements. And then I sent her all the bank statements, and it was my first year of running a business, so I didn't know that I should separate business account and personal account. And so I sent her all this. She's like, what about your taxes? I was like, I failed to do my business taxes because 2 individuals died, and I remember it was my fault because I was waiting for the last month of taxes, and then on my wife's side, 2 individuals, one died and then one's on the way out. Mm-hmm. And so I was just like, hey, let's focus on that. Screw the taxes. And they're like, well, so that's what they wanted to base it on. Oh, well, there's no taxes, so we can't show proof that what you're saying, how much money this thing is producing to you. And I was like, I just want it fixed. I don't want more money. I just want it fixed. And then somebody told me, they're like, at the gym, my friend Matt and Erica was like, what are you claiming for your loss of income? And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah, this whole time you're losing money, so your loss of income, they're going to pay for that. I was like, I don't even know that. I was just so used to getting screwed over for childhood, military, whatever. I was like, just fix the limo and we'll call it good.
Yeah.
They're like, no, they should pay you loss of income. So then I told them how much I made, and then they're like, there's no proof of that. And then I was like, here's the bank statement. They're like, it doesn't show. I'm like, well, some of my sales are through Venmo and cash, and so then I told her in a nice, polite way, because arguing is not going to get there. I was like, ma'am, I'm like, here are pictures of me dropping off $1,000 worth of food at a food bank. As a child, I used to be there waiting for food. Now I'm giving money to them. Here's an event where I bought vehicles and we shot to and from them. I had a taco guy there, a band. I live in California in a 3-bedroom apartment. I have 4 kids, 2 dogs, and a wife. How do you think I support all this? Like if you're saying that I'm lying or how much money do you think I make then? And then months and months passed by, and unfortunately, I it's sad, but I had to take it to social media, to where I made a post, and I made a screenshot the email to how they were playing me. Now it's 6-7 months of them playing around, and then the support came. Like, so many people emailed them, called them, sent messages on their Instagram and Facebook that they made a post. They're like, okay. They're like, we have heard your concerns pertaining to a certain issue. We are addressing it, and we're gonna take care of. Okay?
We're gonna handle the white limo issue.
Yeah. So then immediately that day, somebody calls me, and I'm pretty sure, I can't confirm, but I'm pretty sure I was on speaker, and it's this gentleman that I've never talked to, and he's like, hey, first of all, I want to say that thank you for your service. We support you. We support the veterans. And this and this and that. And then I was like, sir, I'm like, and he's like, but you're asking, because I told him $10,000, and then they're like, because it just happened that it was 2 weekends of my biggest events, my money making events, and they were like, there's no way we're gonna pay you that. And then I told him again, I was like, sir, I buy vehicles. A whole day I buy vehicles, we shoot to and from them, I buy the ammo, I buy the taco guy, I like to support veteran companies, so like for Uncana I bought enough CBD for 65 people, and I like to leave them with something to remember that, not just a picture. And I buy Nalgene bottles and I put OG Pumpkin stickers in there so they can take it, something they can hold. And I buy food and a band, and I'm like, I have these events, and I live in California. This and this. How much do you think? How much is fair? He's like, well, we can't give you 10 grand. And I was like, okay. They're like, and their first offer before this phone call was $500. I was like, to move the vehicle was
Probably be 500, yeah.
It was $650. I was like, it doesn't even cover the me moving the vehicle to the shop. And they're like, okay, 500 plus the $650. And I was like, now it was just an insult. So then now they're like, okay, what can we work? I was like, look, man, I want this to end. I was like, fuck it, give me half. And then because I cut it in half, they're like, oh, no, we can't do that because maybe they can bring it down. And I was like, look, you say all this stuff. You're saying all these words, right? That we support veterans, we support what you're doing, we support your mission. But yet you're over here, not answering my questions where I'm asking you to. I'm not just saying stuff. I want an answer. How much money do you think I make then if I live in California and have the power to do all this and that? And then he would like, let me hold you and put you on pause. And then so like, I think so then he talked to whoever he was on.
They'd sit around the table and
yeah, and they're like, 3,000, and I was like, done. And then I told him, by the way, sir, I was like, when this check comes, I'm gonna take that money and I'm gonna buy food and drop it off at the food bank that where I was a kid waiting in line to get food and to see what clothes I would get for the year. And then he just like didn't say anything, and I was like, have a great day, sir. And then it felt good for it to be over.
Yeah. So is the limo fixed?
Yeah, it's fixed. Long story short, it got fixed. But it was such a huge headache.
Yeah, that's a nightmare. I saw you posting on that on social media, and I've been down the rabbit hole a few times with companies like that where you just get lost in the bureaucracy, and it's rough. I'm glad that it ended the way that it did.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been on the receiving end where they eventually just say, no. And what are you going to do? Nothing is the answer. You fix it yourself and you move on because that's what you do, right? At the end of the day, you're like, you can figure out a solution, you're going to move on to something else.
Yeah.
So how crazy does it feel for you to be training cops?
Mike, and I didn't know how important my story was until speaking with you and then people telling me like, hey, that's where I'm at in my life. Like, I want to get out of gangs. I want to, I used to sell, and then those same pictures, like, they didn't go necessarily the special operations route, but they're like, now I'm an EMT, now I'm a firefighter, now I'm something, right? So when Mike was like, dude, you gotta bring up your past because it helps a lot. So we were in New York training some SWAT teams, and I'm like, my name's Angel Cortes, and I told them my background, and you can just, their jaws just dropped, right? Because they're fighting all this. And it's through action and through that you change people's minds, because one of the SWAT officers pulled me to the side and he was like, hey man, he's like, I used to think all criminals were bad. Like, that people who sold guns and drugs, like, they're all bad. They're just evil pieces of shit. But hearing you, they're like, hey man, that is, it's easy to be on the outside and be like, fucking thug, fucking idiot.
Yeah, fuck all of them.
Yeah.
Yep.
But when your parents basically are not there, they physically abuse you. When they are there, emotionally abuse you, you are fucking poor. You don't have food. Like, but you see people with money and they're like, well, if that fucking works, well, let me do it. So then I'm buying food for my kid, my sister and my brother, and we're buying clothes and all the stuff that we were denied, just as simple as Vans, shoes. I was like, now we can have them, man. Like, let's go to the mall. And he's like, and you just that was your thing at the time. And then once you were old enough to join the military, you left because that's even way better. And you knew that was bad. And he's like, I never saw it that way. So it trips me out. And it trips me out so bad that so much to this day, like, I was hosting UFC fights at my house, which huge shout out to Julian Marquez, who is a OG Pumpkin athlete. He's a huge UFC star, right? He's a big name, and he's up and coming. He's having some great fights. It's always a show when he's on there, and so when I reached out to sponsor him, he's like, I like what you're doing. You can send me the Rash Gardens and Cheese t-shirts, but don't send me any money. Put that money into veteran events. So I had 2 TVs in my house, a projector outside, the taco guy coming out, 65 people in my house, veterans, some civilians, and at this point, my neighbors probably thought I was a drug dealer, to be honest. to be honest,
They don't know what the hell's going on.
I live in a predominantly older community. They're white or Asian, and a lot of them wouldn't talk to me, and a few of them would say hi. And some of them, because of the projector, some of the guys came to watch the fight. And there's people on their balcony, there's people through the window, and you see cops roll up with his lights on. And he's a friend. He's a friend now, but he's a supporter of the company. We had my friend who Christian the Beast, who's a professional fighter. He opened up a wing spot, right? So I said, like, hey man, meet up there, and I'll have some swag for anyone who shows up. And then this individual showed up with the OG Pumpkin T-shirt, and turned out to be a cop for Fountain Valley, and that's where I live, right? And he rolls up with his lights on, and I'm like, man, we're gonna shut it down. We got the music blasting, but then I was like, but I also have active duty special operations guys at my house, and people from triple letter agencies at my house, and so it's like they're like, dude, you're not gonna be in trouble. Look at the time, right? And it's a friend. And I was like, oh, what's up, man? And he's like, hey, I got a buddy who, he just started working there, and he's like, he doesn't believe you live here. And so then he came in. It looked like he came in hot. Like he came in with his lights on.
Didn't want to miss the party.
And he's like, oh shit, dude, like, what's up? I love what you're doing. I love what you're doing for the community. And so now all my neighbors are watching. They're like, this dude's busted.
Yep.
For sure. Got 2 cop cars coming in hot, lights are on, and it throws them off, and they're like, man, can we get a picture? And I was like, yeah, we'll get a picture for the limo. And then and as I'm taking the picture, I see my neighbors from the balcony looking through the windows, and the ones who came by the projector. And the next day, one of them was like, they're like, what do you do? And then I told them. And then because they all talk, I know they talk. And so they're like, wow. So when the cops are like, dude, let me take a picture. These are the people I used to run away from. These are the people who I don't hold it against them. You know, when they would catch us, sometimes they would beat us, you know, and I don't hold it against them. I know what I was doing. And for them to want to shake my hand, want to take a picture, tell me that like they love my story, and they talk about me to the people they are now encountering, you know.
You just use an example.
Yeah. It means a lot, and it feels not necessarily fake, but it just feels like sometimes I feel like I lost my mind a long time ago, and in reality I'm in the loony bin because how good life is right now. So now that you're working with law enforcement and you have a better understanding of what they do and how they do it, if you look back at what you were doing before, getting involved in gangs and selling guns and narcotics, do you even think that there is a law enforcement solution to what it is that you used to be doing? Man, that's tough. Like for example, let's take something that's already changed, right? Marijuana. Like when I was selling it, man, you were getting years, like serious years. Like I knew, like, hey, man, I can go for double-digit years right now. But now. And I was a criminal, and I was a thug, and I was a scumbag. But now, if you're in that world, now you're smart. Now you're a businessman. Now you are on top of the world, and now you're seen differently, right? So I think certain things that are people have gotten in trouble for or are getting in trouble for should not. Hopefully it changes. People used to think like weed would never be legalized, you know?
Yeah. I'd give it a few years before it's probably nationwide.
Yeah. And then now look at it. So I have faith. I'm always more of a cup.
But that's not a law enforcement solution, right?
No.
So that's more people going to the voting box. Is there anything that the cops could have done that would have stopped you from doing what you were doing? I guess.
No. No.
And now that you're working with them, I'm just saying, because you have that lens of the world that you came from, and people are like, well, the solution is police. And it's like, I don't know if the answer to that problem is the police. I don't know if they actually have the tools necessary to combat it appropriately.
Because that is a whole big thing that we can attack in many little areas. I don't want to forget, a lot of the cops, when they would tell me what I was doing was bad, I knew they were right. And not maybe immediately, but their words did get through me. You know, of the dozens of people that they talk to, I'm not sure how many of the words actually get through, but I knew they were right. Mm-hmm. But like that, what am I gonna do? So them talking helps. Instead of us getting beat, like when they beat me, I didn't fucking learn anything from it. Just, hey, don't get caught, because
or you might have more hatred for them.
Yeah, or you're pushing them against. It's like the example when we're like libtards, this and this. You're not gaining them. You know, you're fighting them, and the ones who would talk to us and stuff like that and set good examples, would be like, man, I want to be like him. You know, look at him. He looks tough. He's got guns. He carries himself. The way how he carries himself, you know, the way you present yourself is very huge. But they're also now more than ever underfunded, and people would think that defund the police, like that doesn't, as a criminal, former criminal, defunding the police is not what you want. You have certain issues, and the certain issues are because in many areas they are undertrained, understaffed, and when you live in when your work is a very tenseful, you know,
high stress
occupation, it builds up, and so they may not perform the best. So what is the actual answers? Well, it's more funding and quality training.
Yeah. Which most departments, at least anecdotally from what I hear, are saying they don't have the money and they can't find the time. It's like, yeah. I don't know what to say then at that point.
We have so many cops that come out and they're like they're taking our courses, and they're like, because
are they paying for it themselves too?
Yes, but we always
we
always give them a discount, because we are a business. We need to make some money.
Oh, I wasn't saying it negatively. I find it the same with police officers who find jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
They're not doing it on duty, even though actually I take that back. A buddy of mine who may have gotten me into jiu-jitsu sometimes on lunch will attend class. Or maybe check onto shift an hour late, you know, but have his radio nearby. Most of the people, though, and it comes to even training ammo, you know, they're shooting maybe 100 rounds per year, authorized or issued from their department. I'm sorry, that's not enough.
It's not.
Oh my God, that's not enough that's like 15 minutes training if you're going super slow. Like 100 rounds, like you've got to be shitting
me. And it's not, and you have to train, and you have to train with professionals, and you always got to be testing your limits and improving and getting better. And everyone is so quick to, because now more than ever, there's footage of law enforcement, you know, interacting and shooting and stuff like that. And one of the most,
you know what footage never makes the news? The interactions of any of the police officers talking with somebody like yourself when you were younger, saying, "Hey, man, what you're doing is wrong," and they're slowly and incrementally chipping away at your psyche without you even knowing it, or helping people out on the day-to-day, or all the positive interactions that go exactly like what you would want a first responder interaction to go with. That shit's never on Fox News, which I get. It's far less exciting than the running chest cam and then full presentation. Like I get that, but also if that's all you see, that's all people think happens, which is total disservice to the occupation.
It is. And I've seen so many echo chambers saying all this stuff, and it's because of what you just said, because one media would just post this and this and that, and it's like, man, you're not helping.
Well, the narrative gets out of control, and everybody likes to use the term misinformation or disinformation in the modern era. There's a lot of that shit too from mainstream media, and the narrative, once it gets out of control, you never see the effort to bring it back to where it actually is. But like, whoa. I'd love this news story. Breaking news today at whatever fucking time they do news, 6 p.m. Yesterday, we were completely wrong in the story that we told you because we didn't have the complete information. So here's what actually happened. I've never heard that story.
Never.
I also don't watch the news anymore.
Which is why I believe when they do stuff like that is why their ratings are going down. No one's trusting them, you know?
Yeah.
And one of the things that I don't like that's kind of recently being attacked is science. So I'm going to school to become a registered dietitian.
Science or the science?
Yeah. Yeah. So
it's an interesting qualifier.
Yeah.
When people say you have to trust the science.
Yeah.
It's like, I thought it was just trust science.
Yes. And so I'm going to school to become a registered dietitian, and some people might think like, what the fuck is that? Well, it's basically the professional name for a nutritionist, right? Because a nutritionist can be anybody. There's no legal backing. Like, for example, I can't call myself a doctor or a lawyer and do certain things, because then I'm going to get in trouble, because that's against the law, right? So nutritionist, there's no legal backing. Anybody can call themselves. But just because they're a nutritionist does not mean they don't know anything. There's a bunch of UFC nutritionists out there who are big names, and they don't have any actual education, but they know what they're doing. When I say education, I mean by like an actual degree.
Yep.
But then there's also people who are nutritionists who just saw a couple of documentaries, maybe took a weekend course, and then now, boom, they have a certificate. I'm going to school to become a registered dietitian. And I thought I was going to learn, hey, spinach is good. Done. No. Well, I'm taking microbiology classes, organic chemistry, biochemistry, human anatomy. So you're taking all these courses, and you're like, well, why would you take chemistry? Because you have to understand the building blocks of just food, of what it's at a molecular level, and why is that important, and what does that do for the body, and what are all the human chemical reactions that happen on a daily basis, and why we need certain vitamins and minerals and stuff like that. So going to school for this, it's deep into the science world, right? But now, because of what's happening in the country of left and right, people are saying like, well, there's nothing wrong with science. What there's wrong with right now is with people on the left who have certain credentials, and because they care more about their ideology and their standings, that they are harming science itself. They're like, well, it's this and this, it's the science. And it's like, dude, you care more about your ideology and your beliefs in that way than science. Well, because research scientists are not going to be like I am and focalized, and you know what they're doing? They're researching. That's what they do. That is their world, right? They do all this stuff, and they put all this time, and then it's not that, oh, well, last time they said this, and then now it's what we knew at the time.
Yeah.
And then now it's changing. So
I actually think you just hit on the biggest problem, is that I don't think that there's a problem with science. I think there's a problem with the way people portray the science, as if it's like, this is everything that we're ever going to know about it, ... the end.
Yeah.
I think talking about COVID as an example, and maybe even masks would be a better example. You could argue about the efficacy of masks all day long. There's a reason that people wear them in the emergency room, and I think there could be some positive benefit to it. What I think fucked the government was their messaging.
Yeah.
The flip-flop, the back and forth. It's this today and it's that tomorrow. I just think we'd be so much better off through the entire pandemic if we had opened from the beginning with, we don't know what the fuck is going on right now. Of course, they could choose different language if they wanted to. But if they wanted me to pay attention and they said that, I'd be like, what? Tell me more. What's going on? We don't know what's going on. We're going to give you the best information we have up to date. We're going to give you the best protective measures that we have up to date. And if they change, we're going to let you know when they change and why. I think we'd be far better off. I think the whole thing got weaponized. I think the right is just as culpable as the left when it comes to weaponizing information and delivery. Like both sides are completely fucked, and they seem to be in an environment where their survival of their ideology is primary over everything else. And I don't know, maybe that's just, I don't understand that world at all, but the messaging and just being honest with what we actually know and what we don't, and being okay with saying, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think we'd be so much better off.
100%, and both sides are at fault. And again, these people who, they're nerds, they're not going to fucking stand here and tell you this and that, so I'll do it for them. So when people say, oh, trust the science, it's like, okay, you got to think smarter, man. So is it is it the science that's wrong or bad, or is it that somebody who's comes from the medical field is choosing their ideology first and then doing a disjustice to the actual science community?
Yeah, they're weaponized. They can easily weaponize the information, regardless of which side of the aisle you fall onto.
Yeah, so I'm just like, man, all these nerds aren't going to stand up for themselves. So I was like, I gotta mention it. Like,
they may not appreciate being called nerds.
I know, my bad. I'm sorry. They've helped me out with my homework so much.
They're going to be on the mats. The nerd assassin on the mat is the dude you have to watch out for.
That is...
It's real.
Real. My biggest issue on the mats is people who are technical. My jiu-jitsu coach is like, dude, he's like, when you roll, you look like you're going to kill somebody. You have this look in your eyes. He's like, you have this natural aggression that most jiu-jitsu guys don't have. Like, you're just naturally aggressive. And he's like, but you need to be more technical.
It's uncontrolled, is what he said.
Yes. But,
well, how long have you been doing jiu-jitsu now? A year and a half?
Year and 2 months.
Okay, so you're probably creeping up on a blue belt.
Yeah, my coach brought it up. I didn't care about the belt. Like, I want to get something when I earn it. You know, so he actually just brought it up. He's like, you're gonna get your blue belt soon, man. And I'm thinking like, hell yeah, you know. But when it came. I want it wanted it earned. So I become more technical little by little. But each time where I don't get gold, is I've lost because the individual was technical. And he's like, dude, you got to become a nerd with this. You know,
it's amazing how much you can deflect that raw aggression. I mean, people will say that strength and size and weight don't matter in jiu-jitsu. Those are called liars, because that's why they have weight classes and different categories and belts and all that. So like,
yes,
it 100% matters. Like, you know, it's not a magic formula. Just because you go to jiu-jitsu class doesn't mean that you're Harry Potter, right? There's no wand. And if you're a 100-pound woman and you encounter a 250-pound guy on the street, I don't really care if you're a black belt. You probably at best are going to be able to defend yourself until a higher level of authority or care gets there, which is an amazing thing, because an 100-pound woman who encounters a 250-pound dude and she isn't trained at all, you're fucksville.
Oh, yeah.
But let's just not pretend like it's this magic tool that allows you to dominate everybody. Some of the smaller guys who can get a step ahead and just take all of the weight and energy and just go, and it's like,
yeah.
And like, son of a bitch.
Yep.
That to me is the beauty of it. It's not magic, but it can seem like that if you're a few steps ahead.
And that's why Sid was telling me, he's like, dude, you got to come to gi class because it's going to slow you down.
It is slower because you got grips.
Yes. And he's like, and you're going to learn these finer details where you're not going to get through, no gi. And so I started going to the gi classes. But I should go more.
I mean, how fun is it to choke a motherfucker with a collar, though?
It is. It
makes
fun.
you look at sweatshirts differently.
Yes, it does.
Or zipper hoodies. Oh my God! Can you imagine getting one of those zippers across?
Oh, even though I don't do gi a lot, when people are like, they're like, oh, I'm never walking around with a jacket. And I'm like, dude, you can't talk like that because...
Well, come to Montana, first off. 6-7 months out of the year.
Yeah, because I was like, you can't talk like that because there's cold places in the world where people have hoodies or a jacket on. And I'm like, bro, us living in California, anything below 70 degrees, people start wearing little sweaters and jackets. I'm like, bro, it can work. You can use this. What are you talking about?
You can choke the shit out of somebody with a T-shirt.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if people realize this, but the shirts that Hulk Hogan used to like rip off, they're modified. Or he was on enough Winstrol to kill a donkey, or both.
Yeah, Mexican supplements,
Correct. I'm sure they were totally legal somewhere else. Most, like, you can get a nice grip on a T-shirt and you could pop somebody's head off with T-shirts.
Yeah.
Would it potentially rip? Maybe a little bit. Are you still going to be able to accomplish what you're trying to? Yes. Do most people walk around clothed? Yes.
Yeah. Unless you're like in, I don't know, on the beach or something.
Yeah.
But man, I love...
Then you fall back on your nogi.
Yeah. I love jiu-jitsu. Like, I competed, and it's not a knock on boxing or Muay Thai, but My boxing gym is Raw Talent Boxing. Chewy's the head coach, amazing guy, out of Costa Mesa, and then I competed and trained in Muay Thai for 6 years, and I got close with a lot of guys. But in Jiu-Jitsu, I got close with them fast. Yeah. Like within a couple months, they're in my house. You know, we're watching the fights. We're like super close. You know, and I think there's something special. The fact that, and I think it has to do with the proximity that you're at. Right, you're face to face.
Well, there's a lot of trust.
Yes,
I've only been at Jiu-Jitsu for about 3.5 years. You can go really, really, really hard and not hurt your training partner and not hurt yourself if you trust them.
Yeah.
You know, catching a submission but not putting it on all the way, catch and release. Well, not necessarily catch and release, but grab it quick but finish it slowly. The difference between that, you know, getting your arm caught and you know you're going to get into an arm bar and you can tap early versus somebody who just cranks it before you have a time to tap. You get those training partners. I don't know anything else where you can go that hard and not end up hurt, but the trust required in both training partners. I mean, we're talking catastrophic potential risk to.
Yes.
I mean, look at Kimura's. I mean, I've had it put on before. You're like, my elbow is going to blow out, my shoulder is going to blow out, and you're probably going to take my wrist with you too. We're talking massive surgery, 2 years off the mat if I'm ever able to return.
Yep.
But I trust the person because I've trained with them a bunch. Like there's a level of closeness that comes from that.
Oh, 100%. Because I would spar in boxing and Muay Thai, and at the end of each round or whatever, we weren't like giving props like you do in Jiu-Jitsu. You're like, oh, good round, man, good round.
And you also didn't have your arm around their neck, choking the life out of them and letting them go because you want to keep like, okay, cool, tapped, starting over again. Like, again, it's different.
Yes.
I mean, if you didn't let go and you held on long enough, he's done.
That's why I tell people, I tell veterans, dude, when you get out, you need to find your purpose and your community and stay active. I'm not saying wake up like you did in morning PT and
0400, bro.
Yeah.
Take a picture of your watch.
Yeah. I love that guy.
He's a little bit out of his mind. Maybe consider sleeping in, Jocko, occasionally, or don't, whatever you want to do.
Remember when you told me he was my height?
He is. He's slightly shorter than you.
No, he's not. You had me. Because I was on here being like, man, all those like famous special operation guys are monsters. So that's why people message me like, dude, how did you deal? You know, I talk about mindset and stuff like that and mental toughness because I'm, you know, fucking 5'5", 5'6" on a good day. And then you were like,
Jocko's 5'4".
And you said that in my face. You were like, I was like, really? And you're like, nah. And I was like, damn.
No, he's like 5'11".
That dude's a monster.
He's a beast for sure. He'll be at Origin Camp. He comes there and teaches.
Yeah.
Dean Lister was there last year, a man who I never want to have holding on to my feet.
That strength, Jiu-Jitsu strength is different.
He has divots in his forearms.
From choking motherfuckers out.
No, from leg locks.
Oh.
Straight ankle locks. From just like, he can break baseball bats. By getting,
fuck.
Yeah. So that's how much he's like practiced scooping and getting that.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, I would just scream tap the second that he even started grabbing my legs. Like, fuck this.
Yeah. So that's why I say go, and I used to say go into martial arts, but now I go almost just like go to a jiu-jitsu gym.
Well, if they don't have a choice, or maybe jiu-jitsu would turn them off, I would say martial arts, just because it gets them like doing something. I think, you know, a lot of people talk shit about traditional martial arts. We're literally above a karate studio right now. Mm-hmm. I'm going to have a totally brand new custom studio built near the coffee shop, which is going to be amazing later this year. But I mean, I have no knock on people who want to go and do karate. My fiance is a black belt in karate. She's also a black belt in jiu-jitsu as well.
Nice. And
she grew up doing karate because her mom got her into it. And I mean, you know, my daughter plays softball and my kids played soccer. None of them are going to be pro athletes by any stretch, but they're going to learn about teamwork and communication and integrity and showing up when you don't necessarily, you know, putting in the hard work and the things that come from that. Traditional martial arts is just like that too.
Yeah.
I'm not going to recommend using karate in a bar fight, but I am going to recommend doing karate over doing nothing, you know, or if you do want to test your karate out, I would say do it in some type of sanctioned event where like go to do an amateur MMA fight or something, or like something where it's karate versus whatever else it may be. And maybe you'll find your way to jiu-jitsu and maybe you won't. But as long as you're doing something, like I have no knock whatsoever on any type of martial art unless they never test it and claim it's like the undefeatable philosophy.
Yeah. Oh no, definitely. And I love it all, but I gotta admit, jiu-jitsu has won me. I
resisted it for people don't believe me when I tell them this. So my buddy who got me into it, the only reason that I went and tried a class was to get him to shut the fuck up. He chipped away at me for like, it had to have been 6 months. Hey, bro, dude, I'm getting ready to go to jiu-jitsu. You should come and jiu-jitsu. So one day we're downstairs in my house, not sober. And he's talking about jiu-jitsu. And he's just like, yeah, man, if you came to class, this is, and I remember we were standing there and he basically tried to get me in a standing head and arm triangle. And I didn't know what the fuck he was doing. And I'm like, this is super tight. And he goes, if you started right now, you will never tap me out. I'm like, when's the next class?
Yeah.
I'd literally, and then I asked him, if I go to class, will you shut the fuck up about jiu-jitsu? He's like, yes.
Yeah.
And so I went to a class. I'm like, oh, this shit's pretty awesome. So I wish I had started years ago.
Oh,
yeah.
Man. Yeah, same. But I don't want, before I forget, Black Rifle Coffee.
Yes.
And the fact that Wall Street, that is huge. All those people involved, what they're doing for the veteran community is huge, to showing that, hey, we can do something. We can get all the way to this level. And tell me more about the coffee shop. So now is it going to be like Starbucks?
It is not going to be like Starbucks. Terrible analogy.
I mean, like
I don't know Evan's plans when it comes to physical locations.
Okay.
I'm very, very lucky. I've known Evan for quite a few years now, so I had the ability to just go directly to him and say, Evan, I want to open a coffee shop here in Kalispell. I went through the normal, they have a franchising, paperwork and all of that stuff. So myself and my business partner, we were lucky because I didn't have to like apply or submit anywhere. I do believe that they are going to open up more. I don't think they have the desire to have as many as Starbucks. I mean, I can't even imagine for the size of his company right now already. He has a team of hundreds of people just to manage the coffee business.
Yeah.
If they tried to have as many locations as Starbucks, you'd have to hire 50 times that much just to manage that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That aspect of the business. So there will be some, I'm not sure how many.
Well,
and I don't know his future plans on it.
Well, I hope to make one around us because
LA?
We have a huge community.
It would have to be the right spot.
It would, but it would kill. There's so many.
Not in Beverly Hills.
No, but there's mat support. We have created something very special. And it's because it's a team and backed by now even we're in the Hollywood world and we are gaining the hearts and minds of a lot of these people who were against all this and they're seeing and they're like, wow, and they're coming. So I hope they do one because I drink a lot of coffee now. And the only time I get to buy any Black Rifle coffee is when I go to the store, to the A&PM or whatever the fuck it is.
Oh, the cans.
Yeah. And it bums me out when they don't have the one I want, because I want it now. Cause like most people, you want to have your thing now.
Yep.
And I'm like, you know what, class is in an hour and a half. Let me get mine, and I'll go over there. I'll walk, and it's not there, and I'm like, ugh. Gotta have my cold brew. So can they just have one spot right next to my martial arts gym? That would be nice.
It would be optimal.
Yeah.
It's going to be, for me, I'm thinking about it like I'll have the coffee shop over there, jiu-jitsu right over here, a warehouse for the podcast stuff, and a brand new like custom-made studio, small mat area as well for the podcast guests that get a little lippy, if you know what I'm talking about. Fuck them right up. Unless they're a jiu-jitsu person, then they'll probably just fuck me up. But it'll be cool. How do you like to make your coffee?
Well, I used to be black only, right?
Yeah.
Just black coffee.
Through like a percolator or like just a normal coffee pot, or how do you make it?
Normal coffee pot. And then kicking it with all the seals. So you use seals. I remember we're on the way to go train somewhere and Mike's like, what do you want? I was like, just black coffee. And he's like, bro, we get it. You're hard. And I'm telling you, we all clown each other so hard. And then he got me a black coffee. He's like, here you go, tough guy. And I was like, and he's like, take a sip of this. And he had, Mike's a killer. They're all killers. But he had this almond, soy, something.
I'm out.
And I tasted it. And I was like, yo, this is good. And then little by little, they want me. So now I don't drink black coffee. I mean, if it's just black, I'll drink it, whatever. But I'll take a vanilla hot latte with a little bit of whipped cream. And I'm fell down the ladder in the book. You didn't go down a rung. You just bounced off the goddamn ground. I mean,
the only way you could make that worse is to say you would make that in a fucking French press.
No, I don't even know how to make that.
Yeah.
What I do is normally a small with 4 shots in it and then a little bit of whipped cream.
I'll send you some of the coffee that he made for me. I have my own cleared hot blend, a Black Rifle. It's fucking good.
Yeah.
It'll be good in a coffee pot if you have one at the house. Have you ever explored a Chemex?
No, what is that?
All right. I'll take care of you.
Thank you. And
one of the beauties of coming on the podcast now that they did an ad buyout is everybody who comes along gets a free year subscription to their coffee club.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, man. That's
Except for
so
you,
dope.
because you like vanilla lattes like a bitch.
Well,
Can I get a little bit of cream on there? Not too much cream, please. I'm watching my figure. Just a little bit.
But my wife was like, just get the app. You buy so much Starbucks coffee because it's right next to the house.
Convenience.
And I was like, no, because if I get the app, then I'm making it official. She's like, no, you are a fiend. You are a fiend.
How much per day?
In the morning, I'll have 4 shots. In the afternoon, I'll have a little pick-me-up. So if you're talking shots-wise, probably like 6 shots a day.
Okay. Do you have just like drip coffee in between there?
Sometimes one of the Black Rifle small cans.
RTD, I think. Yeah, ready to drink.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll have one of those. I try to buy Black Rifle as much as I can. I just like to support veteran companies as much as I can, you know.
What he was able to do, I mean, I love the story of, because I know people who knew Evan long before I did. They're like, yeah, it's this fucking nerd like roasting coffee over a goddamn 55-gallon drum, you know, overseas somewhere. I'm like, that's awesome, because it was totally built by a passion for himself, and then built to like him roasting all the coffee and bagging it to what it is now, to being listed on the stock exchange. Like,
that is huge.
And I forget the exact number, but I think it was 500,000 shares that they gave to the Black Rifle Foundation. And as that value of that company grows, that foundation is designed to help veterans and veteran companies. Like, fuck yes, man.
I heard him on Joe Rogan's podcast, and a lot of things that he said hit home. And he said, if I can just help one person, if I can just employ one, and that is huge, because that's what I want to do now. My goal this year or next year is just to employ one veteran. I do sponsor veterans, but I want to employ one. And what their Black Rifle is doing is huge, right? They're leading the way. They're employing these people. They're affecting their livelihoods, which then affects their relationship with their kids, with their wife, with just how they go through the world. And that is huge. That is powerful. And because you get out and a bunch of veterans are they find it's hard. Right, it's hard, and suicide is a thing. I'm a person of action. I love action. If you're in the echo chamber and you're just spewing out negativity all day, every day, you're not. What are you doing? You're not acting, and they're acting. They're putting it there. So that's huge, man. It was a bum to see him catch some fucking slack.
He was put into a position, and I know exactly what you're talking about, and this is all tied to the Kyle Rittenhouse situation, or a lot of it was. And most of the people who are very critical of the statement that he made have never been into a position that he is in, and having to make or being forced into a position where he needed to say something. And the bottom line is 50% of the people on each side were going to get offended either way.
Yeah.
He did the best he could. A lot of the people that criticize Evan and what he's doing, they don't fucking know him at all. I've spent a lot of time with him, with no cameras around whatsoever, and I can absolutely vouch for his character. So for those people who want to voice that opinion, like, I get it, you're entitled to it, but I hate to tell you, in this particular instance, you're very misguided. in the things that you're saying. So we have to engage in hand-to-hand combat in in 10 minutes or so we'll go and we'll get changed out. What do you want to, did we cover everything in your notebook? Did we cover anything in your notebook?
Nah, I mean, yeah, I just, the one thing, before I forget, so I teamed up with Thrasher Ray, which is a skateboard company, and Benji's doing.
You brought one of the decks, right? Pull that thing up here.
As a matter of fact, it's for you.
First off, I'm never getting on that. Have you not watched my Instagram stories? All I like to do is post people eating shit, which I would be one of the videos that I posted.
Yes. So this is wall art for you.
Okay. Oh, awesome. I'll put that up in the new studio for sure.
So I was like, he's not. I was like, what can I? Because last time I brought you stickers, right?
And, the OG pumpkin stickers.
And at the time, that's all. That's what I could do. You know.
Throw that thing up on the table, dude. Let me check this thing out.
And
oh hell yeah.
And I was like, I want to give him something, and I'm like, well, he doesn't need another black T-shirt. Okay, I know that.
First off, how dare you? Can you ever have too many black T-shirts?
So then I was like, I'm gonna give him some wall art.
This would be what I would end my life on, not intentionally.
And but before I forget, so Benji is moving up real quick in the skateboarding world. Like he's at Tony Hawk's house. He's with Jamie Thomas. He's with all these big companies, and it was all within a year because of the work that he's doing. So June 11th, we have, when we first teamed up, him and I are at this Oceanside skate park, right? I told him, hey, let's do another event, a skate event at my house. And I bought a mini ramp, and I had cash money prizes for the amateur skaters with the best trick on the mini ramp, and 65 people showed up. And then he's like, let's do another event. He's like, I got a friend who's going to let us use this private property in Paul, California, and we'll have skate ramps and vendors come out, and CJ from the Ramones played, and we didn't know we did it all in 3 weeks, and we had 400 people show up.
Holy shit.
400 people showed up. Vendors came. So many people saw videos and pictures, and they're like, dude, like one of the guys from the crew from CJ from the Ramones, he's like, this is the most organized illegal thing I've ever been to.
Take that as a compliment.
Yeah. So now we're gonna do it again. It's gonna be June 11th. It's a skateboarding and music festival. The Aquabats will be headlining. CJ from the Ramones, I think he'll just come. I'm not sure if he's going to play. It's to raise awareness for suicide and prevention and stuff like that. And it's not just, hey, do the event, say suicide, say prevention. No. Benji is having these retreats, right, where he's bringing skaters, veteran skaters and active duty guys from various levels coming out and just talking. Like, yes, we go to professional skaters, private warehouses to go skate at, but he also has the retreat part where he's really good in guiding conversation and stuff like that. So we're gonna have that June 11th. Tickets are gonna go for sale March 5th. So it's gonna be in Paul, California.
Where can people buy tickets?
If you go to thrashandray.com or 6 Feet Above, which is the nonprofit, you can buy the tickets there. And then, Jonathan Wayne Freeman, I told him about it. So he's like from Cook of the Day. I'm not sure if you know that page.
I'm familiar with what happens on that page.
So I told that. I'm going to tell my friend Bobby Tribal, who's from Tribal. He's huge in the hip hop, graffiti, breakdancing world. He's been helping me guide me through mentoring me for the business. So that's the big event that we got going on. Other than that, thank you for having me on. Yeah, man. And a huge thank you to my wife. I did ketamine therapy because Mike told me to do it. I did 4 sessions to it, and it helped my relationship, and it made me really, really realize how much my wife has put. I put her through a lot, you know. Anytime she would let me do something, I would push the envelope. I would do more and more and more, and she always stuck with me. And I told her, coming out of the therapy, I was like, I realized the version that you've been getting for the last year is not what you got for the other 11 years we were married. I'm sorry, And she's like, I wanted to tell you that, but I didn't want you to hear those words. I wanted you to feel that, and it come from you, and that therapy helped me. So a huge thank you to my wife. I would not be here if it weren't for her. And what you're doing and everyone else is doing for the community, Tim, Jocko, it's huge, man. So I know you guys don't like to take credit, but fuck, man, you guys are helping people.
I hope so. I mean, it's helpful for me. So, I mean, there's an essence of doing this podcast that is very selfish because it's enriching and rewarding for me as well. So,
yeah. And I know you don't like to take credit, but dude, you keep it up, man. I don't care what people are saying. I know don't dive into it. Don't dive into the comments.
sometimes. You ready to go train?
Yes, I'm ready to go train.
Hell yeah. It's going to be gi too. Rash guard wearing sissies out there.